your input as a student can actually go a long way. And I just discovered that 2 weeks ago, actually. My name is Raphael, or Raf for short. I'm in third year at CAP and studying environmental sciences. So a little bit of a longer story. Got into kinesiology. Thought I wanted to do the bachelor's program there. Got out after 2 years. Walked away with a diploma, and now I'm just stretching my degree a little bit to get the Bachelor of Environment and Society. Just because I'm more excited about applying that rather than applying what I learned in kinesiology. Not that that wasn't fun. So I chose to serve as a student representative on Senate because I'm interested in academia and university on multiple levels, the behind the scene kind of, and I wanted to understand more. I wanted to demystify the decision-making process and what goes into ratifying new policy. And so it's really just out of curiosity. And actually, yes, I did decide, but I got led into it by two professors who I trust and admire, who told me it would be a great opportunity. So seats were opening up, and they kind of pushed me to do it. I made my application in an hour, and ended up receiving word shortly after that it'd be happening the next year. So the Senate is the academic decision-making body of the university. So it's where new policies and old policies that get revised are ratified. So you can think of it as a stamp, a rubber stamp. So the subcommittees are where decisions are made and ideas are thrown around, and then Senate committees feed these policies to Senate for final approval. So when you join Senate, you're invited to join at least two committees, because if no one sits on those committees, really nothing gets brought to Senate for approval. So Senate, a committee that I'm a part of right now is the Senate Curriculum Committee, and so that's where new courses, new programs get pitched and brought to Senate. It's important to have a student representative on Senate because if there isn't, the student voice isn't accounted for in the decision-making of the university. Not only important on Senate for approval of policies, but on the committees as well. That's when the opinions are thrown around rather than just the approval. So it's important to have students, I think, in all levels of decision-making. I think being a student representative isn't a paid position because I think it's supposed to be for students who are interested more than for the compensation aspect. I think if it were to become a paid position, we would lose the students who are interested, let's call it intrinsic motivation, instead of the money, resume booster, networking. I think it needs to stay out of curiosity. So personally, I would keep this a non-paid position. However, it's tough because we're already lacking student representatives both on subcommittees of Senate and on Senate. So there's already a disconnect. And I think if we were to make it a paid position, it would attract more students, but maybe for the wrong reasons. So about 2 weeks in advance, a week to 2 weeks, you receive an invite in your student inbox, and you are given the agenda where you say you'll be able to make it or not by RSVPing. So that agenda, just like any board meeting, covers what's going to be discussed and approved in Senate. When I first started, I was really intimidated by these big documents, and I'm really lucky to have had a professor, the same who led me into the position. I emailed him. He was available. We sat down in his office for about 30 minutes, and he explained me how to deconstruct what the Senate agenda was, how to understand it, in order to best participate and understand what's coming ahead. There is an onboarding process, which I missed because I was working out of province, but that takes place at the very beginning of the term in September. And it's, I think, just the length of one meeting where someone explains what the Senate is, how it differs from the Board of Governors, and the expectations. So as far as participation in Senate, it's not actually required. So no one will pick on you and ask, what does the student have to say? It's really from your own free will if you want to weigh in. And what happens during Senate meeting is you work your way down the agenda, led by the chair, who's also the president. And we have a motion to bring a decision on the floor. Then we have a discussion period, and then we vote on the approval. So there are consequences to missing meetings without notice. It's supposed to be that if you miss 2 meetings without notice, you are taken off the Senate. So as the senator on the Student Union Board of Governors, my duty is to report back to the University Affairs Committee with a short report on what was important to the student union that took place on Senate the month prior or earlier that month. So what I do is I write up the highlights of the meeting or what concerns us as the CSU, and I pitch or deliver that to the Student Affairs Committee, and then to the Board of Directors once a month. My expectation of Senate versus reality, when I got in, I think I mystified it a lot and compared it to decision-making bodies in movies and cinema. I think I thought I was gonna be part of something really big where decisions are taken and it's a super serious environment and people are hungry for power, and which is not that at all. It's really more casual than what you see in the movies. It's kept conversational. People check on you, and I'm sitting next to some people I know, professors and staff. So at the end of the day, it's like a casual conversation that is recorded, where your opinion is weighted in. Your input as a student can actually go a long way, and I just discovered that 2 weeks ago, actually, where I actually amended a new policy with that not being the goal at all. I didn't even know I could amend policy on the spot. So I would say as a student, at least for me, I completely forgot the power that we had, because I'd never been shown, I never witnessed it, I think. But what happened is I just stated my opinion on a new policy. Word got around, some ideas bounced back. I spoke again. I was being listened to, but not there. I don't think I had made a case enough for a decision to have taken place. And then after that, I spoke a third time, and then the person leading the policy change just said, okay, well, we could do an amendment on that. Wrote something up, showed it to me, said, are you okay with that? And there we go, just changed policy. And then Paul, the president, jokingly said, students will be thanking you in 10 years. So I don't think Senate is the place to pitch ideas outside of the agenda. I think what it's meant to do is just approve, ratify ideas that have been brought forward in the subcommittees. So it's really meant as a place to hear intake and as a final approval that's right. So it's really the final step of decision making. So as a new student representative, what I wish I knew at the start, not that it wasn't shown to me, I think I just warmed up to it, is that you have a full-time dedicated team of staff, if you go in with the CSU, that are there to help you prepare and deliver your ideas on Senate. So, for example, for the amendment that I did in last month's Senate meeting, I sat down with Josh, Director of Policy at the CSU, and together for an hour we just made our points. When I started delivering my ideas, I was really nervous. First time, second time, and then I was just going to drop the idea, and then Josh and I were corresponding via Slack, instant messaging during the meeting. That's how we communicate, because I can't turn around and whisper to him behind. And then he said, I was going to drop the idea, and he typed up, I think you should really insist on this one last time, and that gave me the courage to speak again, and that's just what it took to change the policy and defend students. So I would say it's easy to forget the support you have. And I don't think it would be possible to do big change without that support behind the scenes. An ideal candidate for Senate is, I think, someone who has both the intrinsic motivation part, where they are curious, they can see how Senate can help them develop as a student and in the university community, but also someone who sees, someone who can advance themselves, but also someone who sees that they can advance the greater good, something that's bigger than them. So who has those two kinds of motivations. I think someone who is outspoken, confident, someone who's not afraid to ask for help. And by the way, you don't need to have all these things when you apply. You can apply without being the perfect student senator already, because you're going to learn these things. You're not expected to act and deliver as if you were the president, as if you were the chair or faculty. So you learn these things on the go. That's what I'd want to tell new student representatives or people thinking of applying. So the time commitment for Senate is 1 2-hour meeting a month. That will take place on Tuesdays between 4 to 6. Plus, when the agenda is sent out to you 1 week in advance, to do your due diligence, you would go through all of the agenda, make your notes, see if you want to weigh in on this discussion, and that can take anything from 20 minutes to hours, depending on the size of the agenda. So it's really, you can make it onto Senate, and then you decide how much you want to put into it. But making your due diligence would be blocking away a couple hours a month to make sure you've had time to see the blind spots in the agendas. So you're expected to serve on 2 committees, which have their own meeting per month, own singular meeting per month. Same kind of deal. They let you know about a week in advance. And that's where I got tricked a little bit, because not that I didn't know, I think I was warned, but so I joined the Senate Curriculum Committee. And that's the one with the biggest agenda. Sometimes you even need to split the meetings into 2 weeks, and they can exceed 3 hours. So I joined that because I was interested in being at the forefront of new courses. I wanted to be the first person to hear about them, new programs. And so it's great for that. You just have to be ready to sit in and endure the long meetings. You just kind of need to want to be there. And then there's meetings or curriculums with much less of a commitment, known for shorter meetings. And you have a lot to choose from. It just depends on if there's already a student sitting on it or not. and you're told when seats open up. So you have some variety. I think the experience was worth it. Just for the sake of understanding the behind the scenes of decision making of the university, I think it on its own, it was worth it. And then a big part of it is also now I just know a lot more people in the community. You walk around, you say hi to someone, your next door neighbor on Senate or sitting across the room, and it gives you access to people in certain positions that can advance students' well-being and interest. So throughout the years, throughout the serving terms, my educated guess is that student involvement kind of fluctuates. For example, on the term that I represented myself, I got voted in by acclamation. So that means that no one else applied. So I was really stressing about it. I was like typing up my application, hoping for the best, like, oh, I really want to make it. And then a week later got the word that, oh, no one else applied, you're in. And so I think that goes to show the inconsistency in student involvement throughout the years. I've been told that it's mostly business students that make it on. At the time where I applied, I was in kinesiology. So I think it was refreshing for professors who helped me get on, who were themselves on Senate, to see representation from a different faculty. I think we're in a rough spot right now with student representation, both on the committees and on Senate. So for a little transitory period, I was actually the only student on Senate, while there's supposed to be 4. That's the max capacity, our proportion. For example, for the amendment that I made, I spoke up on that policy, the academic integrity policy, or newly revised, because I felt like it was undercutting students' voices and giving a lot of power in the instructor's position. And I think that was a blind spot for students' voices that was missed on the policy committee, which is a Senate subcommittee, because it was missed because there were no students that day when the policy got applied. When the policy got revised and brought up to Senate. So that just goes to show that if there is no student at the committee level before it makes it onto Senate, there is no student voice weighted in, and the slips, the mistakes it's relied on the students in Senate to catch them and to correct them. So I think we need students' involvement at both the committee level and the Senate level, which is really tough. Yeah, we're kind of in a bad spot right now with lack of representation. Few students applying, few students showing up. However, I think that just goes up and down naturally. But what I hope today can do is shed light on what Senate is and hopefully demystify something that can be scary to encourage students to represent themselves.